Hello and welcome to Waypoint, the AirMed&Rescue podcast. I'm Junior Editor Oliver Cuenca. Today I'm joined by Charlotte Young, Chief Operating Officer at Leah's Wings, a UK-based charity that provides neonatal and paediatric air ambulance services.
Hello, thank you for having me today.
Thank you for joining us. It's really great to have you. Yeah, so first of all, would you mind giving us a little about what Leah's Wings does? I know I already sort of said in the intro, but
Yeah, of course. So Leah's Wings, we're the only charity that delivers life-changing air transfers by plane that's based in the UK. And we essentially make sure that babies and children receive the vital treatment that they need, no matter where they are.
And you were founded in 2010, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Have things evolved since then?
Well, yeah.
You went by a different name at one point, for one.
Exactly, yeah. So for a small charity, we've had a really interesting past. And I think, like with everything, your history really dictates, your success for the future. So in terms of our evolution, a key point to note, as you just said, is that we were actually founded as Lucy Air Ambulance for Children. And Lucy wasn't a person. It actually was an acronym that stood for Life-Changing Urgent Care for the Young. And very much so in those early days, we were volunteer-led. Essentially, the charity volunteers would raise funds, and then we would be able to facilitate a transfer. And at that time as well, all of our transfers were based within the UK. And essentially, in terms of the beneficiaries, so the children that we helped, essentially they were all repatriations for babies who were born prematurely and unexpectedly early outside of their NHS region and sort of far away from home. So I think the main step change that came for Lucy Air Ambulance for Children was that we received quite a significant one-off grant, which essentially enabled us to establish the charity that you see today, because it enabled us to invest in professional staff, IT equipment, some office space, and very importantly, our flight-ready incubator, which is essentially a mobile intensive care unit in the sky for premature babies. So, as I said, that investment laid the foundations of the organisation that you see today. But since then, we've grown really steadily, and particularly, I would say, in the past 4 years, through essentially raising our profile, which has enabled us to raise more vital funds, which has enabled us, therefore, to respond to more referrals and to help more families through our aeromedical transfers. I think a really key step forward for the charity has been moving away from purely UK air ambulance transfers, but to actually also helping families who find themselves stranded overseas due to an unexpected medical situation, then facilitating, bringing them back to the UK and integrating them back into NHS care. And this really has been huge for Leah's Wings, as these transfers are very much more complex and much more diverse in terms of what we're expected to facilitate and deliver. And really importantly for a charity is that there actually is no other charity operating, UK charity, operating in this space. And we really are experiencing a significant increase in demand to help families who are stranded due to a medical emergency overseas in this area.
What's driving that increase in demand? Do you have any idea?
No, I think more so that more people know about us, so they understand that we're here. It's literally that we're here to be asked for help. So our reputation is growing as we help more families and we deal with more organisations. So we are receiving more requests for support literally through that growth itself. There's no data on the need, for example, and no one can predict human behaviour. So we don't know when the next emergency is going to happen. But our main priority is to make sure that people know about us, so that they can reach out to us if it does. I think another key area of growth just to touch on is that when I mentioned that we were established purely for, to facilitate premature, to support the transfer of premature babies, but actually now we're doing much more paediatric transfers. And we are seeing, I think actually last year, they represented a third of our the overall number of transfers that we did. Yes, so that is another area that we're really seeing growth in as well. And finally, just to finish, I have to finish with Leah.
Yeah.
So you're very right. We did rebrand 2 years ago from Lucy Ambulance Children to Leah's Wings. And this was after Leah suddenly and very sadly passed away at just the age of 5. And what a privilege and total honour is it for us now to have Leah, this incredibly special 5-year-old girl, at the heart of all that we do. And Leah, in fact, was the daughter of one of our most loyal trustees. So she knew us well and we knew Leah. And Leah would have really wanted to have helped other children. She was kind, she was fun, and she loved life. So we're keeping Leah at the heart of all that we do. And as the charity grows, we will touch more lives with her. And I think this rebrand completely rejuvenated the charity. It increased our purpose. It increased the investment that we received and we so much needed. And fundamentally, it's enabled us to do so much more. So really, we laid our foundations, I think, as Lucy, Air Ambulance, but the bigger, stronger, more brilliant charity that you see today is very much all that is Leah's Wings.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. I'm really impressed that you went from like no sort of paediatric stuff to it being like a third. That's a huge rise. Is that all in recent years, or when did you start leaning into that area more?
I think it is very much sort of the past 3 to 4 years, I would say. I think part of it is the growth in the overseas work that we're doing. We do see, in terms of the support that we needed to give paediatrics, children who are perhaps have experienced the onset of a sudden disease, have had a very unexpected serious accident. So the overseas work has definitely driven this. But also within the UK, we are receiving more paediatric referrals when those children need to access a specific treatment. And a plane is the most beneficial way for them to travel. I think once again, as our reputation grows and more people realise what we're capable of, people are comfortable to come with us, to us with more diverse scenarios, knowing that we can respond and we'll do our best to help.
Makes sense. And you've been the CEO since 2019, is that right? What would you say sort of drew you to Leah's Wings as a charity?
Gosh, I think it's so relatable. It's got children, medical emergencies at the very heart of what we do, and families in dire situations. I mean, I think people would struggle to connect with that as a cause. But I love, one of the things I think Leah's Wings does so well is the culture. We genuinely care about the families who come to us. We will go, as far as we can to deliver what they need. I was drawn to an incredibly special organisation that cared deeply and genuinely for what it was there to deliver. And I think ethically, financially, we do what we say we're going to do. We don't have huge overheads. We put everything we can into reaching our beneficiaries. And to me, that's really important that a charity does that. So, I feel really proud to have led Leah's Wings. And I'm so grateful that everyone who's been on the journey with me.
Just to go back to the sort of more operational side of things, Leah's Wings doesn't have aircraft of its own. It operates with various operational partners. I'm thinking of SkyCare Repatriation, IAS Medical, and Gamma Aviation. So would you mind walking us through some of the how the arrangement works? And
of course. Yeah. So as you said, we have 3 commercial operators, SkyCare, Gamma and IAS Medical, who we work very closely. And I think one important thing to note is that Leah's Wings needs resilience to deliver our service. So, prioritising working with one operator wouldn't give us the flex and the reliability that we need, to represent a national service. And I think we are so incredibly grateful for the commercial operators and their skill and the expertise that they bring to us. And a lot of what we do with them is founded on trust and collaboration. So depending on where the referral has come in from, we would look at geographically, who would be the most appropriate partner to engage with. We would look at the expertise, the medical team that child needed in that situation, and look at where that was perhaps best utilised or best placed or more available at that time for that family when they needed us. We would look at the equipment. We have the majority of our equipment currently based in Bristol with Gamma. So we would look at where access to our equipment as well. But I mean, fundamentally, we would collaborate across the network and look at who was right to engage, who had capacity to support us at that time, and pull in the right operator at the right time to deliver the best service for that family. They're all incredible at what they do. So Yes, it's a really robust operating model that works really well for Lear's Wings.
You mentioned that most of your equipment is based in Bristol, but obviously some of your, like SkyCare, is based in Biggin Hill, I think. So are you planning to sort of move some of your equipment to other locations to sort of accommodate for that at any point in the future?
Well, yeah, we have actually established a small office space in Biggin Hill for the charity because it's very accessible and we think it's really relevant in terms of what we do. So it gives us a really nice other base and hook into the aviation industry. SkyCare actually just acquired their own incubator, so we wouldn't need, it still makes sense for us to have one elsewhere in terms of spread. And I think we have actually just brought some paediatric equipment and, things to facilitate some of our transfers with SkyCare and placed it there as well. But that's more replicating what we have and trying to fill gaps, once again, to make sure that, if for whatever reason Gamma weren't able to respond with our equipment, we have a backup or we have another option to be able to work with another provider, which is really important for us. But it is a slightly different model in working with SkyCare than we would have working with Gamma because our equipment is with them.
Of course, yeah. So it's just sort of about building in sort of layers of, I guess you call it redundancy there. One thing can't work, so another steps in, etc. Makes sense.
Exactly, yes.
So when it comes to sort of neonatal and paediatric air ambulance flights, what are sort of the logistical challenges sort of go beyond what you'd expect in sort of a standard air ambulance transfer with like an adult patient or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of, standard stuff, it would be the same old. It's accessing, beds in the right place with the right treatment. It's ensuring the aircraft, but all of that would be pretty standard to an adult transfer, as you said. I think in terms of pediatrics, a lot of it is really focused on managing expectations with the families. You can imagine emotions are very high. It's incredibly important to maintain trust and rapport, that we manage expectations and that we maintain constant communication, that we facilitate an experience that where the families feel in control of what is happening whilst everything around them is hugely chaotic and very frightening for them. Often we'll have siblings to think about as well. Parents have responsibilities. They can't just drop everything. There might be more than one child. Maybe a dad needs to go back to work because they're having a prolonged stay in another country. There's lots of different things that we need to look at in terms of facilitating the right experience for the whole family unit. And when we plan our transfers, we don't just look at the medical needs of the child. We take in, the whole cultural, the whole input of the whole family unit. And we see each family that we work with as an individual family, a new family that has come to us with their own set of circumstances. And it's Lear's Wings' utmost responsibility to pick away at those circumstances and look at what matters to them, what should we be prioritizing in terms of planning this transfer, to give them the best support that they need. I think specifically with premature babies, and we'll probably talk about this potentially in a minute, so I don't want to repeat myself, there's things like access to emergency travel documents that are very difficult to access and things like that as well. But ultimately, I mean, children can't represent themselves potentially as well as adults can. So, we have to work with parents. Often we work with relatives. And if we have an older child, we will listen to them as well, because it's very much about their life and they're part of the process too.
Yeah, I can imagine. And it must be particularly sort of, I mean, it's always quite emotionally intense, this kind of area. Air ambulance transfers, you're often dealing with patients who are, quite ill, but you have the added sort of emotional weight of it being a child, and that's naturally quite an emotional thing. How do you all balance the emotional weight of the work you do with, making sure that everything sort of runs effectively, I guess?
Yeah, and that's a really good question. And I think we balance. I think essentially families come to us, Lear's Wings, at the most hardest of times. But overall, what we do is immensely positive for these families. And that is the thing I think we really focus on. It's those, whilst we're in the midst of planning something highly emotional and highly charged, it's the end goal that we're focusing on. It's the what are we going to facilitate for them next. And I think, in terms of Lear's Wings, we're all incredibly passionate about what we do. And yes, it can be very stressful, but ultimately, I think the impact that we have at a very human level outweighs this. And, we'll always work our hardest for the families that we know will need us. And to be honest, it's a real privilege to be able to do this and to be here for them. And we'll be here for them as long as they need. For us, it's not just about the air ambulance transfer. And we get to know them. We invest in their journey, but also their future. So, we stay in touch for the good times too. And we'll stay in touch for as long as they want to stay in touch with us. And for most of our families, that's years to come. So, there's a lot of positive within the sort of the emotional intensity and the stress of what we do.
Do you get a lot of Christmas cards and things sent to the office?
Yes, we do. And lots of first days at schools, photos. And, we love to hear the good times. We were there through the hard times, but please share the good times as well. It's what we say. And it's nice for parents that we've worked with through really stressful situations where they've been very vulnerable and they've shown very strong emotions towards us. It's lovely for them to come to us proud and in control of what's happening. So it's really rewarding.
And probably great for you guys as well, because you get some closure, I suppose.
That's it.
So, like you say, I wanted to touch on things like the premature babies. So there are a range of challenges that you talked about there. Like, how do you get, or babies that have been born? How do you get like passports and things to get them home and all that sort of thing? What sort of technical challenges are there? Because it seems like it's quite a difficult thing.
Definitely. And I think parents find themselves in this world that they sort of don't know anything about. And I think sometimes there is this assumption that because they're British or they have a right to, they're British citizens, that they can just put that baby on a plane and they'll be welcomed into this country. But essentially that baby isn't recognised by this country as a British citizen, and they've been born in another country and their birth certificate reflects that. So the first thing we do is, we don't get these babies passport. We don't apply for a passport. It takes too long. We apply for an emergency travel document, which is essentially a temporary travel document with a 2-week window of travel, permitted. And it takes time because we have to prove citizenship as part of that process, rightly so, which means submitting a lot of documents. There's also an interview process. There's various hoops that we must jump through. But our role as Leah's Wings is to guide families through that process. And the first thing we have to do really, and basically, is let them know they need to do it. And, any hold up will be because we don't have it. So, and an example is a mum contacted me. She's in Athens the night before last, and she was in active labour in Athens. And she was like, "I'm in labour. What do I do?" Well, you're going to have the baby, but then what do I do? And it's, she let me know when the baby was born. I said, well, congratulations. And it was almost like, well, now you need to apply for an emergency travel document, because if you don't, it's going to take longer. And we almost have to zoom in with quite some sort of logistical challenges that we have to overcome. But without us, without people finding us, I've had families contact us months down the line, and they're like, we had no idea we needed to apply for this, and now we're going to be here for another X number of weeks, and we could have done it in this time. And it's things like that, and then we'll support them through that process. And if they want us to engage with the authorities on their behalf, they give us permission, we can step in and support and things like that. So that is a challenge that we support with.
I mean, it sort of reminds me something somebody said to me recently, which is that people are generally optimistic about their and their family's health when it comes to travel, things like insurance or whatever. But and I feel like that sort of nobody expects that something like this is going to happen, especially because when it comes to I guess childbirth and pregnancy and things like that, things often happen very rapidly.
Yes.
And
your world can spin on a dial, can't it? And all of a sudden, very much so.
Yeah, it's very sort of thought-provoking in a way, because you sort of don't know what you don't know, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And that's one of the key parts that Leah's Wings plays, because when a family phones us in the midst of a medical emergency, they say, we have no idea how we get home. How do we get home? And that's when we say, okay, we'll help you get home, and we'll take you step by step how you get home. One step at a time. We'll walk you through the process, and at each part of that step, we'll be there to help you. And, that is our role, because they are terrified and they do not understand. Why would you know how? Exactly what you said. Why would you know unless you needed to know? And, that's where we step in. We do know, and we've been there before. And We're here to listen and provide a safe space, but we're here to navigate logistical challenges on your behalf. We're here to be your voice if you need us to be, and we care about what you're going through, and we know the right people, and we trust the people that we know. So our operators, I'm so grateful for. They have so much expertise, and they know that when Leah's Wings comes to them, they know what we want to deliver and how we want to deliver it, and they know the culture of what we do, and they're incredible. And we bring them to them. So we facilitate that, their medical expertise and their aviation experience with our, logistical experience and our compassion for the families. And we then create this whole experience for the families, which culminates in the transfer.
And do you ever feel that Leah's Wings has sort of a responsibility to be a voice on behalf of families and patients like the ones you serve, and maybe advocate for greater awareness, but also greater government support, perhaps?
100%. And I think what we bring is a wealth of experience, but also we're a neutral voice. So we're not financially or politically motivated. We only want what is best for these families. And yes, there's always room for improvement, isn't there? But there are certain processes, to be honest, the system that these families experience and find themselves in, it isn't fit for purpose. There are many obstacles. There's too many different organisations. There's no set process to follow. And yes, our families do need an organisation to advocate for a better system for them. And we are very willing to do that for all the right reasons. And we do want to bring these situations to the forefront so that people have awareness of what is happening, and also so that hopefully Leah's Wings can advocate with key stakeholders to genuinely find solutions to what is happening.
Are there any particular issues that you're sort of campaigning on at the moment that you're feeling very focused on?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, the ETD, the emergency travel document process, isn't designed for babies who are born early abroad. I think, fundamentally it's designed for people who've lost their passport, and who've had a passport before. And we'd love to work with the Home Office to make this process easier and more efficient for these families. As for an example, we'd also be really eager to partner and to have a dialogue with some insurance companies to help them understand the issues that the real reality that these families are facing, and really to help them understand that medically the repatriation of babies is possible well before 40 weeks, well before they are deemed term. And we'd like them really to know that Leah's Wings is here to help and support them. And we'd love to share our experience and expertise and really enhance what they do as well, for better outcomes for everybody.
So on a slightly more a lighter note, I suppose, as a charity, I wanted to hear a bit more about the ways that you fundraise, and tell me a bit about how you do it, and how creative do you have to be with it?
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, in terms of, what we've spoken about, there's only one part of what we do. And a lot of what Leah's Wings does is invest resource and time and energy into fundraising, because without funds, we can't do anything. And yes, we have to be incredibly creative. I have to say I'm very lucky to have a really, truly brilliant team. We are a small charity, I've mentioned, and we do have limited resource, but my team go above and beyond, and they are very, very good at making little go a long way. I think, they're truly smart, they're innovative, and they're incredibly resourceful, and they're very motivated by the essence of what we do. And in terms of how we fundraise, I mean, it's sort of kind of what you'd expect, but I'd like to think we do it very creatively and very well. We do receive support from companies. Our most loyal partner is actually a company called Houlihan Lokey. They're an investment bank. But we also raise funds through trust and foundations, basically submitting applications for grants, funding grants. We have a whole portfolio of challenge events. That's sort of marathons, skydives, walks, and we even do really fun things like shark dives. And we have a stampede run through a safari park. So we do try and differentiate ourselves and try and have something to offer for everybody. But in honesty, I can't talk about fundraising and not talk about our families, the families that we've helped. So a very high percentage of our families that we have supported do come back to us post-transfer asking to raise funds for us. And they do all sorts of, I know it's lovely, and they do all sorts of events for us, all led by them, where their passions lie, where their community networks are. And essentially it is this most beautiful pay it forward attitude. And they come to us and they say, we know what it's like to feel desperate and then find you. And we want to ensure that you can be there for the next family that they know will need us. So we're going to fundraise for you. And I think that just speaks volumes in terms of the impact that we have, their passion and commitment for being there for the next family.
Yeah, it's beautiful, really, isn't it? It gives you faith in humanity.
Yeah, it really does. It makes me smile so much.
So last question on my list really is really what does the future look like for Leah's Wings? Do you have any plans for the coming years?
Yeah, I mean, wow, what a question. I mean, I think the brilliance of Leah's Wings has been that we're always very responsive to need. So, and we're always very reactive. For example, with the overseas transfers, that was a need that came to us and we thought it's our duty to respond. But I think looking for the next 5 years and looking back over the next sort of 4 to 5 years, our challenges and our aspirations pretty much will remain the same. Essentially, we want to do what we do now, but we want to do more of it, and we want to do it on a bigger scale. And I think essentially we need to raise more funds, and we need to raise awareness of who we are, and therefore we will be able to help more families. Our whole reason to exist is to help the families that need us. We have always been very beneficiary led, at the beginning, as I said, and we will always continue to be. So I do think we've built up expertise, we've built up partnerships, but we are required to do more of what we do. And I think, that will be where we look. I do believe overseas transfers will start to take over a lot more of our time and resource. And I do believe that we will need to invest more heavily in this area. And also key partnerships will, like we've just spoken about in terms of government agencies and also insurance companies, I see developing some key partnerships as really important in terms of delivering more impact in our overseas air ambulance flights. So that definitely will be a key priority for us. But ultimately, we will continue to do what we do very well, but on a bigger scale and with more influential partnerships.
Fantastic. Bigger and better, ultimately, really, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, well, thank you so much for talking with me today. I really enjoyed chatting. Any final thoughts?
No, I mean, it's just great. It's great for our voice to be heard, and we want to do more of things like this. And if anyone's got any questions or wants to come and speak to Leah's Wings, our door is permanently open. So thank you. It's been wonderful.
And that's all we've got time for on this episode, and indeed this series of Waypoint. Thank you so much to Charlotte and all of our guests this series for joining us. It was great having you on the show. Until next time, safe flying.